Okay, perfect. Well, let's do this. I apologize for the delay.
Okay.
So again, we're going to start off with a true-false set of questions. Number one, Iceland is a poor country. And the
No.
answer is it's rich. It has the third highest median income in the world. So they do quite well. Number two, Iceland is an ignorant country.
False.
False. They are extremely well educated. Number three, Iceland is capable of defending itself against outside aggression.
False.
No. You're correct, it's false. They have no army, they have no air force, they have no navy. They have a little tiny coast guard, so if anyone is interested in ganging up on Iceland, you'd probably be able to take it. Icelandic last names are easy to figure out. This is so cool. I didn't know it until I was there, but they don't use surnames the way that we use surnames. Basically, they take the first name, usually of the father, and if it's a son, for example, if it was Paul was the father, his son's name could be Eric, but it would be Paul's son. If it was a daughter, it would be Paul's daughter, and so quite unique. They've gotten more progressive in recent times. You now can take the maternal first name if you want to add son or daughter behind that, but that was quite interesting. One reason that I got fascinated with Iceland is the number of movies that have been filmed in Iceland. Two of the James Bond movies, many of the Star Wars movies, Game of Thrones, I'll come back to that later on, Tomb Raider, Fast and Furious, because it has such a unique and gorgeous landscape. It really makes for a wonderful place to film movies. Now, the first thing I want to do is orient you to the fact that Iceland from above, Iceland as a map, it looks like a rooster looking to the west. Here is the upper beak of the rooster and the lower beak of the rooster. Here's the coxcomb right here. So it's a big plump rooster that we're looking at. Now, there are two different types of climate in Iceland. The Arctic Circle lies right at the northern edge of Iceland, and so a lot of its climate is tundra. The upper plains, 1,500 feet to 7,000 feet, they are cold and they are wintry, especially in the wintertime. But notice this green. Iceland also is warmed by the trade winds and also by the ocean currents as well. And so all this green that you're seeing is significantly warmer. And about 90% of the population of Iceland lives in these green zones and only 10% in the interior. Now, remember that rooster. This is a satellite map, and you're seeing the coxcomb, and here's the beak. And notice this is wintertime, and Iceland is icy in the winter, all that snow and glacial ice that you see. However, this is the summertime. Here's Iceland over here. Here's our little rooster, okay? And notice that much of the snow and ice have melted in the summertime. There's just a little sliver. There are some glaciers that are there year round and the like. Look at Europe. Here's Great Britain. Here's Norway. This little appendix off of Germany is Denmark. And Norwegians discovered Iceland in about the 9th century. As you know, they're very good swimmers, and I think they swam out that far and they saw the snow and ice and said, oh, what's that icy land? Now, Norway, being a very seaworthy nation, actually dominated in medieval times, and there was the Danish Empire, which consisted of Denmark, Norway, a couple of islands, Iceland, and also Greenland as well. So their heritage is Norwegian and Danish. Now, we've talked about the weather. We've talked about the fact that it's Arctic in some areas, and it's also has some trade winds that warm it as well. What about the geography? Interestingly, Iceland sits on top of two different tectonic plates, the North American tectonic plate that we're seeing here and the Eurasian plate that we're seeing to the east. And it runs right up the middle of the country, and you can actually see visible evidence of that throughout Iceland with these ridges that we're seeing here. Now, as you know, when two tectonic plates come together, if they rub along each other, they're going to create earthquakes, which Iceland has. But in this instance, they're also pulling apart. And so these rifts form. The importance of that is that as these rifts in the tectonic plates occur, it allows lava to come up from subterranean regions. And so Iceland has a lot of volcanic activity. You're seeing these active volcanoes here. One is sitting on top of a huge glacier, and underneath the surface of that glacier is actually water. It's superheated by the lava underneath. As you all may be aware, there was a famous Mount Aya eruption in 2010. This is showing that, and it was massive and it was prolonged, and it had a profound effect on the world. If you look down from the North Pole, here is Iceland, and you can see that it spewed ash well over the European and Asian continents, over on the North American continent as well, and it actually blocked 10 million commercial airline flights until it finally went away. Iceland continues to be a very volcanically active country. So how do you get there? Well, here's our rooster again, and you fly from the US or any place into Keflavik, which is a 45-minute drive to Reykjavik that you're seeing on the lower beak here. And you basically have a couple of choices if you want to travel it. Route number 1 courses through the northern part of the country, as I'm drawing here, and it's a paved road, and also it courses along the southern coast down here as well. Not much road system in the middle in the highlands of Iceland, and those are not paved roads. Those are gravel roads being crisscrossed with glacial streams as well. So in general, one makes a decision. The first week that I was in Iceland, in 2016, I did the northern route, and the second 7 days in 2018, I did the southern route. It would be difficult to cram more than that in 1 week. Now, I want to point out this Snæfell's Peninsula. Here's Reykjavik, and you come up, and the Upper Beak is a very important peninsula because of the gorgeous photography that one can have there. Reykjavik is a very cosmopolitan town. Beautiful architecture. This is their opera house and symphony house. They have wonderful sculpting all throughout Reykjavik as well. Their hotels are nice, but their bathrooms are tiny. This is a picture of a bathroom. I took this picture in the bathroom, and as it says, yes, this bathroom is tiny. Just finish your business and come and hang with us at the bar. We'll tell you some stories about other crummy little places around Iceland you should check out since you are at it. They are tiny. There's no place on the sink for you to put your shaving equipment or your toothbrush or anything like that. The showers are little tiny things in the corner, about 3 feet in radius from the corner, and so they are tiny. Now, not only that, but also remember that sitting on top of volcanoes, Iceland is a geothermal country. They get 90% of their energy from geothermal sources. But as you can imagine, when you turn on that bathroom faucet, there's just this little special scent that you get. It's called sulfur. It's called sulfur, and it really is true. In one hotel, I had been up all day. I had jammed a whole lot of mud and gravel in my boot soles. So I came back to my room, and I had the water on in the bathroom for about 20 minutes, scraping all that stuff out. And by the time I finished, the whole room smelled like a big fart. So we're back to our map here again. Here's Reykjavik. And the first that we did is we headed north, heading toward that Snæfell's Peninsula that I talked about a minute ago. And along the way, you just start seeing some beautiful spots. These are the famous Roundfosser falls that they're just thousands of yards long across a beautiful blue-green river as well. And so right off the bat, we were getting just gorgeous shots. And we passed by a very famous church. It's called the Black Church at Búðir, and it's the most photographed church in Iceland. And you can see the beautiful mountains with the colorations in the background and the skies, and it was just a wonderful thing to get a shot at. But there are lots of other churches that are also black in Iceland, and I came across this one. It's not unusual to have grass roofs. They're also called peat roofs as well. You're going to find in other structures, especially in the highlands, that look just like this, and they've been well maintained, and they're quite beautiful. Now, further on down, again on the coast, is a little village called Arnastapi, and this is an iconic shot. This is known throughout Iceland, where you have a beautiful white house with a red roof right on the shore, with the beautiful mountains, glacial, filled mountains in the background, and so just incredible opportunities. Now, we finally got to the Snæfell's Peninsula, and this is one of the reasons that you go there. This is probably the most famous iconic shot in all of Iceland. And this is Kirkafell Mountain to our right. And then the falls, which are called Kirkafell Foss. Foss in Icelandic means fall. And it's just gorgeous. You're seeing the moss-covered rocks, the green, the beautiful sky in the background, the soft water. And so people come from all over the world to get this particular shot. And you can do close-ups of it as well. So I zoomed in a bit. From that angle, I was able to show the moss on the rocks even more and the beautiful water and rock in the corner as well. So this peninsula, which is only maybe 3 or 4 hours from Reykjavik, would definitely be worth your time. And then we started heading out of this peninsula back east and came across a beautiful little seaside village, which is called Stikkisholmur. And you can see the Atlantic, beautiful little harbor, beautiful European town. You can see the beautiful white buildings and the colored roofs with a mountain background behind that. Just wonderful opportunities to bring your camera. Also, a very famous architecture. This is a church in the middle of that little town. If you turn around and point your camera out toward the sea, you're going to find this little tiny lighthouse here. Nothing special, but still fun to take. It was interesting because this fellow right here was operating a drone, and he chose to stand right in front of the lighthouse to operate his drone. Now we started heading east, northeast, and started coming across some beautiful waterfalls such as this. I love this because it's massive to begin with, and it shows 6 separate waterfalls across the top, falling into a pool, falling into a pool, falling into a pool, and then another one as well. So just magnificent. And again, you can zoom in and create completely different images as I did with this particular one. Now we worked our way further northeast and across the coast, we came across the Black Rock. Now this Black Rock is iconic anyway, but we caught it on a magnificent day. As we were driving out there in the morning, the skies were all dark and socked in, but as we got there, they started to lift and the sun peeked in underneath the clouds and lit up the water, and we got this gorgeous pink horizon because of that. I then went up on top of the ridge and shot down, and I got a different view of the same particular rock. But there was an international photographer who was there that day, and he came up to us and he said, "You guys don't know how lucky you are," but we did. We did. Now heading as far northeast as we were going to go on this particular trip, and we came across Foss, really enormous waterfalls. We got there on a day when it was completely socked in, and it was raining hard and the wind was blowing, and you can appreciate in the right lower corner here all that vegetation that's just whipping back and forth. Massive waterfall because it was raining, and you can see it's pulling a lot of that volcanic sediment down, turning it sort of a brownish color as well. But still, the power of the scene was just magnificent. Now then we started to here we were up at Detafloss. We'd managed to make it all the way across the Northern Island to that waterfall I just showed you. And coming back, we came back across the highlands. These are the Central Highlands. And notice here, the roads are not paved. They are gravel roads. They are cut with glacial rivers and streams. One needs four-wheel drives, if not even more, to pass these as well. But it's worth coming back to this particular area. The first thing that we encountered was just this beautiful sunset on the way with beautiful water in the background. And then we came to the Mývatn geothermal area. It is an active geothermal area. It's the most active area in all of Europe, as a matter of fact. And it's a broad plain with red earth. It looks like Mars in some ways, with these bubbling pools that you're seeing and the steaming fumaroles in the background. It does smell like sulfur when you're there. There was a bit of a breeze the day that we were there, so you can see how it's taking all of the vents to the left and made it, I think, a more striking image. Here's a close-up of one of those bubbling mud pools. But what I really liked was that huge glacier capped mountain in the background, and again the reddish colored earth in front. This was also one of my favorite shots. The steaming fumaroles created clouds, as you can see. So there was sunlight, but the fumaroles blanked them out, and we saw clouds. So you've got this beautiful foreground with some sunlit areas in the background. Some of this blotchiness that you're seeing here, the magenta blotchiness, is a combination of a low resolution image placed into a PowerPoint slide presentation. Also, it would rain sometimes in this geothermal area, and so it would melt all the mud and sludge, and then they would dry up and they would form these wonderful mud cracks that we're seeing here in a combination of different colorations due to different chemicals, interesting patterns. In the background, you see the mountains. You're seeing some of those steam vents in the background as well. So it was quite a visual treat. Then moved on to other very famous waterfalls. This is called Aldirfoss. It's famous because of the basalt columns that you're seeing here in front. It is massive in size, and one would really need a panorama from way left to way right to get the entire picture of this. Then we could continue to head back toward Reykjavik, and we would pass these beautiful hillside farms. And again, with that European look of the white buildings with the red roofs, and there just isn't anything out of place at all. Everything is just perfectly maintained. And we came across another very famous fall. It's called Godafoss Fall. We got there on kind of a socked-in day, but we still had some wonderful images here. Again, you've seen the moss-covered rocks and the beautiful water in the background and the like. Then we encountered so we were coming back by this glacier here on this road, and we encountered another geothermal area in the mountains, which was spectacular. You're seeing here massive mountains with massive glacier on top, but and here there's a stream and there's a stream and a nice bridge across, and tons of hikers come to this area year round, and you're seeing that they've created little stairs in different places for the hikers to be able to move up and down. These are not clouds that you're seeing here. These again are steam vents because it is an active geothermal area. Just turn 90 degrees to your right and you'll get other beautiful similar images, different colorations, steam vents, hiking paths as well. Now, while we were there, we got lucky. This was September 1st. But our guide came to us and said, believe it or not, conditions are right tonight for Northern Lights. And we thought, well, I'll get this is the September 1st. But it turns out that the Northern Lights require two primary conditions. Number one, the skies have to be black and cloud free. And so you can go into this particular site and it will tell you your likelihood of seeing good Northern Lights on that particular night. Notice here's Iceland. We can see our rooster with his coxcomb up here and his beaks as well. And notice that the cloud cover almost completely escapes Iceland here. So in the center of the country right there, there would be no cloud cover. Now I snapped this January 28th, just 10 days ago. And the other thing that you need for Northern Lights, in addition to dark skies, is you need active solar flares. And those solar flares send out ions that interact with the Earth's atmosphere, especially at the magnetic poles, north and south. And you want this needle to be up into the 4 to 5 range for good for good Northern Lights activity. And we happened to have it that particular night. And so he said, you want to get up at 2 o'clock? It had to be 2 o'clock because it was still pretty light at midnight. And we said, yes. So we got up at 2 o'clock in the morning and we were out there until 4 o'clock in the morning. The first thing we did was to go back on the ridge behind the hotel, and we found this little dirt road, and we found a beat up old shanty that wasn't being used, and we used this as our foreground, and we shot any number of northern lights, but this was one of my favorites that we got that particular night. Now, while we were doing this, someone said, "Guys, turn around, look the other way," and so we did. And across the valley, these northern lights were going on. This is that ridge. Our hotel was just down below that ridge, but you could see there were a lot of campers and hikers, RV people that were in this area. So there was some light here, but again, the beautiful northern lights off in the distance. And we just got lucky that night. We went to bed at 4 and we got up at 5 o'clock in the morning to start shooting again. Down the road back to Reykjavik, again, coming across beautiful falls. And the last one that we came across was called Gullfoss. It's massive. Gullfoss is close to Reykjavik, which is why you're seeing people. It's perhaps 2 hours out, and so people are willing to make that trip. That's why it's well maintained, as you can see. A lot of folks there, beautiful, massive falls, and they fall to 2 different levels, actually. You can see the upper level. This is the middle level that we're seeing right here. But if you want to come around to a different angle, which I'll show you, you can see they fall off into that river, in that gorge below. But again, just beautiful water and a beautiful countryside. One thing that we noticed after a while is you'd be driving across very flat terrain, see nothing, expect nothing, and then suddenly come across these waterfalls out of the middle of nowhere. So we had completed our northern trip, and 2 years later, I went back and I did the southern half, and that started off with the Western Highlands and then the southern coast. So again, here's our map once again. And the first thing out of Reykjavik, we went up into the Western Highlands to take advantage of some beautiful scenery. Once we finished that, we came down on Route 1 along the southern coast. I know some people in the club have done that southern tour. This is Gummy. He was our guide for the southern trip. He's about 6'4". He looks very scary, but he's a really nice guy, a great photographer as well. And this was our vehicle, and we needed this vehicle. Notice the super high tires with great tread on them. Notice the very high clearance, and also notice the periscope. This is the air inlet for the engine, and you think, why do you need it up there? And I'll tell you in a little while why we needed it up that high. So for fun, I asked, we were crossing rivers and streams all the time. And one time I asked Gummy to just cross that one for me. It turns out this is going to be kind of jumpy for you, but I still wanted to give you a sense for what we saw. Now that was a little tiny stream that we saw, but they got bigger after that. But the reason that you would do that is you came up on this beautiful tundra desert where you're seeing high deserts with mountains. There is water, but the water leaches through the ground very, very quickly, so it doesn't stay. So vegetation doesn't have a chance to get its roots down very much at all. And this gives us this beautiful crushed volcanic rock with occasional patches of vegetation in the front. Here was an opportunity for vegetation to get a little bit more of a foothold as well. You're seeing that beautiful, fine volcanic gravel. And there was water. Sometimes these glacial streams and rivers, little patches of grass trying to make it alive, but you can just see why it just is a beautiful landscape for photography. We came across these little huts periodically in the highlands, and they're pretty old, but there were ways that people could stay warm in the wintertime or store things in the wintertime. And they would just dig them into the side of the mountains. A very famous waterfall in the highlands is called Hyfoss, and it was a lot of fun. There's a parking lot just to the right here, so it was very easy to get to. And if you wanted, you could just walk over to the edge of the parking lot and snap this shot. The river canyon goes down to your left. So if you swing your camera 90 degrees to the left, you're going to see the river down below, the canyon. And here were a young couple that I used just for a sense of scale. What I did is I walked down the edge of this canyon down to about here so that I could shoot back up at the falls. And by doing so, I got this really pretty shot. You can see the flatlands and then the water coming on down, and so really an enjoyable shot. But really the moneymaker shot, I went down to the bottom of the canyon and I walked back up and stood right about there. And when you did, you got the spray off the falls, as you're seeing here, the beautiful shot of the falls, and a bonus, and that was the double rainbow off to the right. And someone pointed out to me after I took this shot a phenomenon. Notice that the red is on the inside of the rainbow arcs. If it's a double rainbow, it's not uh, reversed. It's red on the inside in both. And if you look at this shot, this is a vast, vast canyon. You can see the moss-lined walls, and this doesn't make a very good picture to hang on. You say, what's the subject? And actually, there's the subject. That is Gummy. He's our 6'4" tall guide, and he went on down that path and stood there. And now you get a sense of scale when you compare him to the vastness of these canyons. So we came from the highlands back to Reykjavik, and then we took up Route 1 so that we could come along the southern half. And you saw these beautiful plains along the southern half. See the beautiful moss-covered cliffs, but anywhere they can grow grass and feed cattle, they'll do that. And there are a couple of waterfalls that are pretty close to Reykjavik, and so they're pretty popular. You're seeing a lot of folks here. This one is called Seljanos Foss, and it's famous because you can walk behind it, as you're seeing here. Not a particularly spectacular waterfall. It's its proximity to Reykjavik that makes it well traveled. And further down the road, there's another one, which is called Skogafoss. Skogafoss is famous. It is a pretty fall, as you can see here. It's easy to get to. The parking lot is just off to your right. There are a lot of people there oftentimes. I found a particular moment in which there was just this one woman in the yellow slicker who was admiring the falls. One reason that these falls are famous is they were used a lot in the winter scenes in Game of Thrones. If any of you is a Game of Thrones fan, you know that Winterfell, the cold part, was very, very cold, and they used a lot of images from these falls, icy falls in the wintertime in Game of Thrones. Then we traveled further east along that southern highway, and we came across the beautiful black sand beach. It's called Rennisfar, and it's famous for these sea stacks that we're seeing. It's also famous for sneaker waves that come in. I caught some waveform, but it wasn't terribly high, but 2-foot waves can come in, and there's actually a cliff over here just to our left, and they lose people periodically. That undertow sucks them out to sea, and the last deaths were in 2017. And then we continued from Vik further east along that to notice this very famous glacier here. Notice it comes down to the coast. And there's a famous glacier lagoon at Jokkelsaren right here that is world famous. And I've seen some other pictures from other members of the club there. Interestingly, as this glacier comes down to the coastline, it sends what are called tongues of glacial material down. There's a large lagoon here, and I caught just the upper inlet of that lagoon as the glaciers fed into it, and you can see that the water is dirty from all that volcanic melt that occurs in it. You know, beautiful vegetation here in the front. But this lagoon is massive, both in length and depth. It's 850 feet deep, and it is the home to thousands of different icebergs that you're seeing here. You're seeing a large glacial mass in the background. You're seeing the kayakers and other boaters having a lot of fun in the front. As you know, 10% of the iceberg is above the surface and 90% below, so you can appreciate how massive these are. And they make beautiful photos. Notice the blue. It turns out that when a glacier compresses all of the air out of the ice below it, the ice turns blue. And so we're seeing glacial material with no air in it, and it just turns that blue color that you see. And after a while, you can start finding some fun shapes. So I thought this looked like a crocodile or an alligator to me. You can see his eye, and there's his jaw, and there's his lower jaw on front. And so we had a lot of fun taking pictures of this type of thing. Here's another one. To me, this looked like a sleepy dragon, his eyes and his snout with a large glacial mass in the background. Now, this lagoon then traverses a small, very short river and dumps out into the Atlantic Ocean. Oh, I forgot to tell you about this. This is just a sunset picture of the lagoon where I caught the sun reflecting off the water, and I thought it was pretty. But as these icebergs make it out to the Atlantic Ocean, they will wash back up on the shore. You're seeing this beautiful black sand and black pebbles, just the most gorgeous black sand beaches you'll ever see. And this was Brian Stockton. He was my photographer buddy. Really interesting guy. He was a retired CEO from Mattel Corporation and a really nice guy. He did shoot a Sony, but other than that, I really liked him a lot. And you can see here he's well dressed for this because these waves come crashing in, and he had waterproof boots on and pants. And he's shooting some of these uh, images that float up on the beach. And this was the one that I caught that was my favorite. It was a large piece of iceberg. It had captured a piece of volcanic rock. So it almost had the appearance of like an eyeball in the front and maybe some fins or something like that. And it was wedged on the water, and you can see the water coming around it with a beautiful silky water in the background and the sky. So this is definitely a place that you want to spend some time. And then for our final portion of the trip, we traveled all the way from Jokkelsaren all the way to Hoffen. And because there are the very famous Vesterhorn Mountains that you can see in the background with the Stocksnest Beach in the foreground, which makes just a gorgeous shot. The Atlantic Ocean is just immediately behind me in this particular shot. So I've taken you on a long journey. Iceland, land of fire and water with just tremendous photographic opportunities. And I say you simply must go there. So with that, I will end and open for any questions or comments.
I had a question. So was this a photography tour arranged through the United States or Iceland, or how did you do these trips?
Yes, both of them were photography tours arranged through a local guy that I know here who has connections with adventure tours in Iceland. And I really benefited from that. They had the equipment. They took us to places that we never would have thought of going. The geothermal regions, for example. And so I did both times, and I would highly recommend that.